It just occurred to me there that, when you have bin day, most people in Scotland call it bin day. I'm sure in some places they call it refuse day or bin collection day or wheelie bin day. I don't know, but certainly in Scotland most people call it bin day. So Sunday is not a bin day unless you live somewhere where the great big machine comes to collect your garden compost. And most of the garden compost contains things that you wouldn't put on your compost heap, like weeds, nettles and stuff, which will obviously very difficult to kill off nettle roots and seeds and strawberry roots and seeds and buttercup roots. So these all go into the wheelie bin for collection, sometimes on a Sunday. Certainly, depending where you live, your postcode will determine which day they collect it up. But the point of my story today is, and I didn't go up the glen, well I did, I went up halfway, but there was a wide load was travelling at very reduced speed, knocking half the fucking countryside out with its wide load, i.e. vegetation and walls and tree branches and everything it could find to knock onto the road. So I decided that I wasn't going to follow this wide load through the glen. So I'm sitting here by my fireside and I'm almost forgetting what I was going to talk about. But I'm mentioning about wheelie bins and bin day, and the fact that it seems to be the last bastion of for people who can take out their frustrations on something without being arrested. You can take and haul your wheelie bin to your heart's content and knock it to fuck into walls and push it into fences and hedges, and you can bash it about in your garden area. You can sling it around and throw it against the wall. You can do anything you want and no one bothers, because everyone seems to be having a fallout with a wheelie bin, and it is becoming quite a regular occurrence. I notice lots of people heaving and pushing and thrashing their wheelie bin. That's the empty wheelie bin, of course, not the full one. But I just thought to myself, I don't think they were actually designed to be smashed about the place the way they are. And I think what the problem is people feel slightly inferior. I think they actually feel a bit stupid dragging this thing behind them. Very conspicuous, and there's not an awful lot they can do. For example, they can only look at their feet, or maybe lift their head occasionally. But on the whole, I think people are embarrassed that they have to haul this thing back and forward. And I certainly notice they take out their bad temper and their miserable mood on these poor wheelie bins. And as I say, crashing it and thrashing it against walls and into other wheelie bins, quite unnecessarily in my opinion. Why can't they just drag it along at a nice, gentle pace? I mean, I must admit, 3 wheelie bins, I have mentioned about this before in some of my vlogs. It does seem to be a particular problem for my brain, wheelie bins. I think it's because I quite often, well, I do, I regularly wake up with a start, a bit of a jump in my bed about 2:45 in the morning, or 2:30, or even 4:15, and I'm thinking about the blue coloured recycle bin, which in our region is defines that bin for paper, cardboard, plastic, and I think tins. And I think that was my problem. I think I put in something which looked like a tin, but was more of a glass jar. And when I woke up in the middle of the night, I thought, oh no. So I got my torch and I put on my dressing gown and my slippers, and I took out the torch and I tipped the wheelie bin upside down in the middle of the night during a gale. And there was all manners of documents and papers and everything in cardboard and some smelly things too. And I didn't even any chink or clink of glass, so I was quite reassured. But just to check and make sure, I then took my green, my green-coloured wheelie bin, which is for general household use, except plastic, cardboard, paper and tins and bottles and glass. So I don't really know what you're meant to put in the green bin, because everything you buy generally comes in cardboard or paper or plastic, and I don't think there's so much left to put in the green bin. I really can't think of anything even at this moment, and that's probably why I only empty it or have it emptied once a year. But just to be sure that this glass jar type thing was actually where it was meant to be, I upturned the green bin as well. And there was all manner of things that had been there for months on end landed on my feet. And I couldn't find this glass bottle, and I thought, well, it was a glass jar thing. I said, I wouldn't have put it in with the compost, would I? So I made myself a quick cup of tea. I thought about things, and I thought, I better just check. So I upturned the compost wheelie bin, which is also a green-coloured one, but it's got a light tan, brown type of tanned lid, just for the stupid people so they can tell the difference between the green one for household rubbish and the one for compost, which is double the size. Anyway, I upturned all the compost, and my legs were scratched with roses and brambles and weeds that are destined for the council compost machine. And my garden was an unsightly mess, and the wind was blowing all the papers around and everything. But I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep if I hadn't checked on this glass jar. But it wasn't there either. And I thought, where the hell is this glass jar? What bin is it going to be in? And I decided I'd come into the house and have a little rummage around in the house and see if I could find it. So I cleared some of the shelves in my cupboards, and I opened up different cupboard spaces, and I couldn't find the damn thing. And then I remembered quite well that I'd I hadn't used it. I hadn't actually opened it. It was still in its package, and it was still sitting in the carrier bag. Seriously, people are starting to go off their fucking head about different things they've got to put in wheelie bins. I mean, people just don't have time for that sort of stuff. It really is awful. I might have to go and visit my GP again. And see, I'm starting to have fucking thoughts and stuff during the night about wheelie bins. Tell them that I worry. I'm very anxious about wheelie bins. I remember the time as well. I mean, this is why I had to sort of give up my work. And I was commuting on a stagecoach bus, and I don't know how it started, but it sort of developed, and it became rather fixated in my brain. What had happened was, as I was travelling through different villages on my way to work, and people were looking at the bus, I was wondering what they were looking at. I thought, what is so interesting that they have to stare at the bus as it passes? And what actually happened with me is I thought they were looking at me, but but I knew they weren't looking just at me as me. So I assumed, which is not a good thing to do, if having any sort of mental health issues, but I just assumed that they thought, well, I started to actually believe that they were looking at me, but I wasn't actually as me. I was, I hate to say it, but I was a red Indian, like one of those Western movies you used to get with the cowboys and Indians. Well, I used to think that I was sitting on the bus and I was wearing a feathered headdress, and I'd painted a painted face, like war paint. And this is what they were looking at as the bus trundled past through the villages. They were staring at me. So I said to my doctor that, do I look like a red Indian? And he says, no, you don't. And he says, whatever's the matter with you, Andrew? I says, I explained the situation about the bus. He said, come, I think you're stressed. Take a couple of weeks off. In fact, I think you should get out of that job. It's stressing you out too much. But anyway, I stopped using buses for a while for that thing. So when I walk about or stuff, I don't get that feeling, but I do sometimes get a little creeping sensation that someone maybe in the supermarket is glancing over because I'm in full red Indian dress.